Hello and welcome to another Wolftime gaming video. We are continuing with our Harry Potter theme today, and we're going to be painting up this Dementor for the Harry Potter miniatures adventure game for Night Models. It's absolutely fantastic. These are probably one of the scariest things about Harry Potter for me. It really unnerved me when I first watched the films, but I think they're perfect for this type of game, and these look absolutely amazing. I really can't wait to get some paint on him. Before we do that though, as usual, let's get that kettle on. So if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know the first thing we want to do is give it a really good base coat. I've used Games Workshop's grey sear for this. It's just giving it a really nice base coat. Just want to try and get into all those cracks and crevices because there are a lot of sort of recesses on this model. But going with a lighter paint like this allows us to use the contrast paints. And the first one we're going to use is Contrast Black Templar. And you can see as soon as this is going onto the model, put it on there really thick. You can see it's dropping straight into the recesses straight away and giving that really sort of dark grey look on all the raised areas, which is perfect for these Dementors because there's a lot of black with these models. You know, they are pretty much all black apart from, you know, the arms and maybe a little bit of the chest area, which are like a grey yellowy colour or sandy colour rather than yellow. But the black is perfect for doing this. There's so much detail on this model. The contrast paint just drops in really nicely. As you can see here, it looks brilliant. I've done the whole model, gone over the whole thing, and including the base as well, just all of those cobblestones, because we're going with that darker theme, as you've seen with the previous videos on Ron and Hermione, and also the Death Eaters as well. We've gone for black for all our cobblestones, and then raised that up to sort of a grey sort of a colour to make it really dark and dingy, which is the look I wanted to go for with these for this game anyway. So the first sort of colour we're actually going to be putting on the model is just a little bit of grey. I'm using Celestra grey and I'm dry brushing this onto the arms. Now you can see I've used like it's quite a large bristle brush, because essentially what you want to do is get quite a bit of paint on there, rub the majority off onto like a piece of tissue or a palette or something like that, and then dry brush it onto the model. And what you're doing by doing this sort of technique is you're only catching the top areas, you're not painting it on, and you can see it's left all those little recesses a little bit darker. Now what we're going to do with the base is virtually exactly the same thing. We're going to be dry brushing all of these cobblestones, getting them looking really good, and we're starting with a slightly darker grey than the Celestra grey that we previously used on the arms, and that's called Dawnstone. It's a really nice sort of mid-level grey, and all I'm doing is dry brushing this straight over the top of the cobblestones, and you can see it's just catching the edges of the cobblestones and those raised areas, leaving the darker areas in the recesses, so it makes them pop really nicely from the rest of the model. You can see I've actually left the sort of openings open. I've not tried to fill them with anything. You can try and fill them with green stuff or a little bit of sort of modelling clay or something like that if you want to. I'm going to cover them up with some rocks in a minute. You'll see that towards the end of the video. Now what I'm going to do now is actually put another dry brush coat over the top, and that's that Celestra grey that we used for the arms earlier, and I'm going to go even lighter over this now, so it is literally just catching the edges, so you've got a couple of greys in there and going into the darker areas in the recesses, which looks absolutely brilliant, or in my mind it looks brilliant, and I think this looks really good for on the tabletop as well. It really makes the model pop nicely from the rest of it essentially. So the next paint we're going to be using is just around the arms again, and that's to give it sort of a sandy sort of a feel. Now one thing I noticed when looking at the models, you can't really see it on the reference image very well, but one thing I did notice in the films is the arms and the chest area are that sort of a light sandy colour as well. So I'm doing exactly the same thing I did with the Celestial Grey on the arms earlier, but now I'm doing it with Xandri Dust. And this is just to give it a sort of a sandy tint as such. You don't need to do it all because you've got the grey on there as well, but it just adds that little bit of detail in there, which you really do need with the Dementors, because as I said, with them all being black, you do lose a lot of that, I think. And you want to make a lot of the models that do have some colour pop really nicely. The base is just done with an older Bad and Black paint I've got. I use black paint for all the bases that I do, all around the edges that I do anyway, just to make the model pop really nicely. It frames the model nicely, so I do that all the time. You will need to do a couple of coats on that as well. Yeah, to get all this model to blend together, make it look really good. I know around the arms and things it was a little bit too bright for me, so I grabbed some Null Oil, which is just a shade paint from Games Workshop. I'm just coating that area there, and I'm also going over any of the other areas, like around the rib cage, a few of the more recessed areas around the cloak that's flowing, just to darken it down a little bit more and add that little bit more detail onto the miniature, really, and mainly to make the lighter areas that we've already done pop nicely. Now around the base, as I said, I was going to hide these areas, and all I'm doing is grabbing some rocks and things, so I'm making it look like it's some rubble or some broken bits of buildings and things. You see a lot of that in the films. It's very sort of dark and dingy, and I'm just hiding that with these little rocks. And it's ideal to do that. You'll know that I didn't do that with the other models. I just went straight in and left them as they were. I'm actually going to put a little bit of static grass and a little bit of flock just around the base as well, just to add that little bit more interest in there. It makes it look like it's all growing through the cobblestones, makes the area look a little bit more run down. You can see I've grabbed some tweezers and I'm just pushing it into the recesses of the cobbles, which is where all these sort of weeds and things would naturally grow. They'd all shoot up through the middle of the cobbles, and it gives it that more like realistic look rather than it being just a very plain cobbled base. I mean, they work, and I think they work really well with the smaller models, but as you can see, when it's on a bigger model, it looks really, really good. It makes it a little bit more realistic, especially with that bigger base. I'm really pleased with how this guy's turned out, and I can't wait to get some games with him on the tabletop now he's painted. And they worked really well before he was painted, but now he's painted, I'm sure he'll give that full sort of immersion feel with the game, and I'm really excited to give it a go. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Go and check out the channel now for more great content. There's loads of painting videos including Games Workshop, Star Wars, and loads of fantasy settings such as Frostgrave and one of my favourites, Boars and Badgers. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.